You never forget your first, do you? I remember my first pet, a dog named Tigger. I loved that scruffy little nerf herder. I remember my first console. It was the Super Nintendo. That thing defined my childhood. And I remember my first video game. It was called Beauty and the Beast. You were a white dot on a blue screen trying to avoid the hunters in a maze. Literally no one I've ever described this to has ever heard of it, including my parents who owned the computer, so if you have, please inform me in the comments so that I know I'm not insane. Most relevant to this video though, I remember my first Legend of Zelda game, and the emotional roller coaster that it took me on. You know, over on the Twitch channel, I pride myself on the fact that I actually pay attention to tutorials and am fairly decent at the games I'm showing off. But let me tell you, that was not always the case. My games were always bought used, and this was before the internet was widespread, so I had no manual, no game facts to turn to, no idea who this guy was or what he had done in the past, and ignorant to the fact that you had to use your shield to push the sea urchins out of the way so you could get your sword and actually begin the game. I owned this thing for 3 days before one of the other kids in my class sat me down and informed me of how dense I was. It's not my fault. That guy said a shield can flip enemies, not push them. Everything else bounces off when I merely touch it. How come these guys don't? Don't blame me, the game just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, this little island adventure was a struggle sometimes. Between the trade quest and how you obtained the ocarina, there were days where I just gave up and started my save file all over again so I could play through the parts I had already figured out. That's the only reason I know Link's Awakening like the back of my hand, because every new discovery was such a monumental event in my mind that it's etched into the folds of my brain for eternity. But I tell you what, the more I pressed on, and the more this world started opening up to me, the more motivated I became to, one day, see the end. This game was like a giant puzzle that I slowly pieced together by backing up and double-checking everywhere I'd been to see what changed, and I was addicted to what that process inspired in me. I must have dug up every single square on that island at least once, hoping a seashell would pop out. I used to look forward to seeing the owl again because his arrival meant either something important had happened or he needed to share something crucial with me. Plus, you know, owls are awesome. In fact, not a single NPC in this game felt like wasted space. Every single one of them was either part of the main quest, the trade quest, provided a useful service to you, or was just downright weird or had funny dialogue. And naturally, the more time I spent on this island with these interesting characters, the more I started to get attached to them. I used to be so intrigued by that mermaid just off the coast. I used to have an actual crush on Marin. Still do, to an extent. And I used to think Crazy Tracy was so pretty and so useful because she could save me from death for a mere 42 rupees. Basically, I was just really lonely as a kid. The girl in the real world that I was after wanted nothing to do with me, so I may or may not have projected on these characters a little bit, especially when one of them started returning my feelings. And of course, right around when I was getting attached was when the game decided to pull the rug out from under me. That's right, sucker. We spent the first 6 chapters of the game getting you comfy and acquainted, only to reveal that nothing you did ever mattered. Because even in canon, Koholint Island isn't real. Neither are any of the people on it. And once you finish your quest, all of it will disappear. I remember how that felt clear as day. I was in actual denial over this revelation. I had convinced myself that everything was going to be okay in the end, that there's no way the developers would actually make that happen. And then I entered the Windfish's egg. There I was, lost in the darkness, trapped in an infinitely repeating maze. No Marin, no mermaid, not even any enemies to distract me from what I was looking at. Just the same repeating rooms over and over, with nothing but that simple and threatening music to keep me company. And that's when something in my brain just snapped. I had never felt so alone, so hopeless, so emotionally crushed. It's like I was seeing the true face of the island, and it was hollow and cold and empty inside. The game practically taunted me over how this was the only thing that was real, that all the ups and downs I had gone through before were now a lie. I couldn't take it at the tender age of 8. I started panicking, practically teared up over this. I didn't have a word for it at the time, but that was my very first experience with existential horror, and it left a mark. The music still freaks me out today for that very reason. But, like any other hardship this world threw at me, I overcame it. I got the magnifying glass, I found the book, I memorized the directions, and I conquered the nightmare. And once it was down, that was it. The windfish woke up, Link was free, and the island was no more. And that's how it was for a while. For years, I didn't know what to feel when looking back on the game. But then I discovered a ray of hope. A hidden ending, something you could only see if you beat the game without dying once. And when I finished that playthrough, it changed everything. I was crying again, but this time, it's because I was happy. Never before or since have I been moved so much by a single little visual detail. That's why this game means so much to me. It's such a bittersweet part of my life. But, especially with that ending, I find myself focusing on the good more than the bad. The reason it hurts so much is because even if they weren't real, the memories are. I'm still here. I remember the time I spent with all these wonderful people, singing and playing and helping one another, and they're gone now. All save for one. And wherever she is, she's happy. I can't even say that without getting choked up a little bit. Oh God. This game changed me. It gave me an experience I will never forget for the rest of my life. I can't. I owe it to those guys.